Okay, I'm going to show you a very simple way to make a really great lobster salad. So I have some boiling water and I have some lobsters, which I got at Market Basket. They were $7.99 a pound, which is a great price. And my recommendation is to get your lobsters at a grocery store because they're much less expensive and they come in fresh every day, at least on the Cape they do. And there's no reason to go to a specialty fish store. The lobsters are all the same. So let's get these guys out. See, he's moving around. Put him down for a minute. This guy's mad. You can tell he's flailing his tail. Get me out of here. I know this is really the sad part and the hardest part when you're making lobsters. But we'll see these guys in a minute. So we're gonna take them. And I just do it head first because I feel really bad for them. In they go. Sorry, buddy. Yeah, get in there. Okay, they're both in the water. I put the cover on briefly to let the heat come back up. And I'm going to cook them. They're a little over a pound, so I'm gonna give it between 8 and 9 minutes. Okay, she's all cooked. Let's break her up. So I have two bowls. I have one for shells and one for the meat. So first thing I'm going to do is you reverse the way that the claws are facing. So this one's facing forward. I'm going to reverse it and backwards, and look at how easy everything just comes off. These are called cheddars. The shells are really soft this time of year. There's not as much meat in the shells, but I think they're much sweeter because they're smaller lobsters and they're easier to open. You don't need any tools. I did take out a couple of tools in case I need to get into small areas. I just use a nutcracker, and this is like a long metal thing with a fork. I think this is actually a crab pick, but it works well for this. So, excuse me, you just pull everything opposite of how it goes. So this one goes together. We're gonna pull opposite, and the shells break apart and gently remove, and the meat just kind of falls off of the claw. Again, claws are bending this way. I'm going to reverse and bend it the opposite way. Because the shells are so soft and the meat is smaller because they were shedding, they're growing harder shells, the meat literally falls right out of the shells. That's why I love this season for lobsters. They're so easy to break up. Again, reverse the order or the feel of the shell against where all the cracks are, and you can see the meat just falls right out here. So I'm going to do this for the whole, both claws. And if you have trouble getting anything out, or if your hands are wet and you can't break it up, you can always stick your metal thing in there and it pulls right out like that. Very easy, very simple. Don't be afraid to buy lobster. And it's always more fun to do it at home because you can make a mess. I like to empty the water into the bowl. You can make a mess and you don't have to worry about it. If your pieces don't come out perfectly, so what? You're just gonna make lobster salad. They're all gonna taste the same. It doesn't change the flavor. And it's very easy and simple to do. I prefer to eat lobster at home. I think it's an expensive treat. And so I wanna make sure I get every little last piece of meat out of there. If anybody knows me, they know that I am an excellent lobster breaker. And, whoops. So sometimes you'll have cartilage and it may be in the meat, so you just want to pull that out. That one happened to come out quite nicely. And just punch the shell until it cracks and breaks off, and you can get the meat out. Look at that nice little piece of claw meat. Okay, so now I'm at this section. His claws are gone, or her claws, and I'm going to, and I used to know how to tell them apart. My brother-in-law from Maine taught me, and I can't remember. So anyway, sorry about that, Stan. I'm gonna break off the tail. So you're gonna snap it back and forth. It breaks off very easily. This has tamale inside, which my mother loved, and I'm not a big fan, so I'm going to put that in the bowl. And you can see the meat right here. Again, I just snap the two sides together and then pull apart at the back. And this comes right out, the tail meat. Just like that. Look at, I even have a little tail fin. Sometimes you don't even get those. If you look in the tail fins here, I don't know if you can see that, but this is actually a really good one to show you on because the shells are so soft, it's great. As you pull back the fins of the tail, see that? There's actually meat in there. So you don't want to miss that. Get every last little bit of meat you can out of this thing because it's expensive and it's yummy, and I don't want to leave any of it sitting in the bowl. So that's completely empty. Now we have the tail meat here. For this, you want to see how there's like a top and a bottom to the tail here? I just pull this all the way back. That goes in my meat bowl. But see how there's this dark vein through the back? Just want to pull that out. You don't want to eat it. You can clean it with your metal thing here. And I go all the way down the back. Sometimes it doesn't have anything in it, but you just want to get rid of that little vein on the back of the, and then you're done. We do have a little bit of liquid from cooking, so I'm just going to clean that up so I don't swim in it. And we're gonna pull this off. See how this head, the shell comes off? Put that in the bowl. And there's two things here. We have meat in the middle of the body. I'm gonna get rid of the tamale because I'm not a fan. We have meat in here, in the body, and there's also meat in all of these legs. So the first thing I do is I break the legs off, but I leave the knuckle on the body. And the reason why is that I'm gonna show you how to quickly get the meat out of the legs, and you don't want the knuckle on it because it's kind of like a little backstop. Whoops, got one. Okay. Now we have the body. If you just break it in half like that, you can see, this is where the picker comes in very handy. You can see the meat in here that just is, they're not big pieces, but they come between cartilage. They're easy to pick out. They add a nice filling, if you want to call it that, to any lobster roll because it's all meat. You don't want to waste it. You don't want to throw away the bodies like a lot of people do. Right, Stan? My brother-in-law thought I was nuts for cleaning out bodies when he would get lobsters. His whole family are lobstermen up there in Maine. And they just eat the claws and the tail and the rest is garbage. And when I was growing up, my grandmother used to go down to the fish market and get the lobster bodies and throw them into her spaghetti sauce for dinner. And we would all nibble on, see all that meat? We would all nibble on the lobster bodies and get all the meat out of the bodies, and it would add nice flavor to the sauce. Or the gravy, however you want to call it if you're Italian. So these big chunks are meat that is in between these cartilage veins. And it takes, you know, this is probably the most time consuming, but if you have the right tool and you're patient, you can pick all the meat out. Lobster, 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 lobster. Okay, so my special tool is this rolling pin. And this is the easiest way to get the meat out of the legs, I think, rather than using the middle tiny little nut thing. So you put it, this is what a leg looks like, and it's got a little mini set of claws at the end here. So you're gonna start at that end. Put your rolling pin on it and just roll up. And you will get a nice little piece of meat coming out of that claw. Okay, so I am back. Hi. I am emptying, I had 2 lobsters, so I'm pouring all of the lobster shells into that bag that I kept. And I'm going to seal that up and put that in the trash so I don't have to smell it. And now my hands, even though I took my outdoor shower this morning, my hands will smell like lobster for days. So I have now all the lobster meat in here. And I like to just take the larger pieces, like the tail, and just do like a very rough chop. Because I like big and small pieces of lobster meat in my lobster salad or rolls or whatever you're gonna make with it. The rest of it, like even the claws, they're small. What I bought were, we call them chicken lobsters. They're usually 1.25 pounds. So they're smaller, and the claws are small. So something like this, I would just simply break in half with my fingers. So that's all of my lobster meat from 2 lobsters. Now I'm going to add a rib of celery. And I like to cut my veggies very small because the lobster meat's very small and tender. And I don't want big chunks of celery or onion interrupting my flavors when I'm taking a big bite. So I like to get them as small as I can. I'm not too picky about uniformity and size and all of that. I'm pretty flexible, so that goes in the celery. And I have a little bit of white onion. I think the red onion can also be really nice. I just like white in this because the color, you know, I don't want to interrupt the pinky orangish colors of the lobster. So I just want to keep everything else kind of neutral and not too crazy. So little tiny pieces of onion. I didn't use a lot of onion. I don't want to overpower it. So that was a small onion and I used, you know, a little bit of it. The one thing I always love to add to my lobster is fresh parsley. I think it gives it a nice little bright flavor. I'm not picky about stems. Parsley stems have just as much flavor as parsley leaves. So I chop everything just very finely. The green does add a nice contrast to the red, a little Christmassy colors or, you know, festive look to it. It adds a pretty color. And it has a nice bright summery flavor, so I like to add parsley to it. And then goes that. And like I said, I've been taught my whole life growing up cooking that I never measure anything. All right, so now I'm going to get a lemon and some mayonnaise. Okay, so got a lemon. I'm just going to use half of a lemon. And my lemon juicer. And this gives it a little brightness and flavor. And classic New England lobster salad has mayonnaise. If you're from Connecticut or South, a lot of times people just put, you know, some melted butter on there and call it a day. That's not really Massachusetts, Maine, New England lobster salad. So I'm doing the old-fashioned way, and I'm going to add a good heaping tablespoon of mayonnaise. And then I'm just going to mix everything together. You can add salt and pepper. Some people add things like celery salt or garlic powder or onion salt. I don't think any of that is necessary. I prefer to use the fresh vegetables like the parsley and the celery and the onion versus powdered. You're using fresh lobster, you use your fresh herbs too. You can add basil, you could add tarragon is really nice in there. And with the lemon juice and the mayo, you don't get a super thick coating on your lobster salad. So that's that. I'm gonna lift this up so you can watch me try to but let's try a piece. Oh my God. That's summer in a bowl right there. Enjoy it. I will.